Okay, welcome to the live stream, ladies and gentlemen, where a French police chief has said tonight, we've lost control. What exactly is meant by that? Well, if you've seen the news, or rather the lack of the news over the last day or so, you'll know, to give you context here, that 72 hours ago there were mass attacks across France at a number of prisons. In fact, let me tell you which prisons they were here. We had Toulon, Aix-en-Provence, Marseille, Valence, you know French isn't my first language here, Nîmes, Luynes, Villepinte and Nanterre. And these were the prisons. They were all attacked. And this hasn't just been one attack. It wasn't just one night. This has now been going on for 72 hours. And Macron has finally made a response, and he said that he has allocated police resources to apprehend the suspects and punish them. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. That is actually what he said. They're going to apprehend the suspects and punish them. This is beyond baffling to me, the way these, I mean, he's not even the Prime Minister, by the way, Macron, just so you know that. People still seem to think he's in charge of everything, but somehow he is. But I wanted to bring your attention to something else that happened last year that, as I was watching this story, I recalled. And this was the transport, the prison transport van that was traveling from one prison to another with this big gang boss in there. And if you remember what happened, it was attacked by a number of cars. And obviously we're streaming on YouTube here, so I'm going to use keywords throughout to be so we don't get the video banned and censored right away. But there was a lot of this going on, right? And the prison officers were no longer alive, shall we say, by the end of that attack, and the gang leader was taken away and freed. I think he went to somewhere in Eastern Europe. They finally caught up with him, but I don't even know if he's back in prison yet or not. But it's interesting that they're now creating these 200 super prisons, these super prisons for just 200 inmates. And you should look yourself at where all of these people are from. I think there was 2 that were actually French. The rest were these big mob bosses from all over the world, pretty much. And of course, it's all drug related as usual. It's just unbelievable to me that this is now going on in Europe, and the leadership response is so weak, it's unbelievable. The other thing that I found really interesting about this story, and I'll tell you a little bit. In fact, let me just show you the one of the things that was being. This was just one. This was just one of the incidents. It's been going on now for 3 days. I mean, look at all this stuff that's been going on. 3 days, all of this has been happening. I want to go on to another big story as well as this one today. So we're going to cover 2 big stories, and then we've got a lot of other news stories. But the biggest issue they're saying now is that these gangs have actually infiltrated the prison system and even the police system. So because there's so much money, and France is the biggest user of these drugs, I don't know how else I can say that without getting the censorship here, but because they're the biggest users of it, these gangs have got so much money that they've even infiltrated the police system and the prison system. So now one of the ideas is to set up this special task force. So there's all these ideas going around, but one of the ideas is to set up this special task force similar to the Secret Service, where these officers have got no family, they've got no debts, they've got no ties to all these other things, because these gangs are either threatening, they're using the carrot or the stick approach, threatening the prison officers and the police officers, or they are incentivizing them with money. So they're basically bribing the entire system. So they've got a big issue. And I think this was the first wave. I'll tell you what I think this was, because they didn't try to break anyone out. I think this was a warning. It was a kind of warning to say, if you're going to go after our money and our supplies, then this is what's going to happen. The other thing I found interesting was that they're conducting this investigation. It's been ongoing since the first night, and they said that at this point they have absolutely no idea what the motivations are or who was behind it. Who are these people doing the investigation? I mean, my grandmother could figure this one out. I mean, it's unbelievable. I have to laugh, not because it's funny, but because it's so absurd what is going on right now. So let's go over to this a second. Then we've got to come on to the other big story. Then let's go to the top. Then these attacks have just been going on for 3 days. So this was a second wave that we have here, but we've even had a third wave before I started streaming here. And where's the it just shows what was happened. These were automatic weapons used. A lot of the vehicles were all set on fire. This was all the vehicles set on fire all across France. And what are they really doing about it? Well, not much at all. But I want to come on to the next big story, and here's the headline: "The West as we knew it no longer exists." This was von der Leyen and her interview she's just conducted. So what I wanted to do was actually get the full transcript here, which I have, and there's actually two interviews that took place. There's 2 transcripts. So this is what she said: "The West as we knew it no longer exists, and people shouldn't expect it to be coming back as it was before." So this is one of the first things that she's said. She didn't have anything positive to say about President Trump from the US, and she's declared, amid rapidly deteriorating relations with the US, that Europe is now being forced to break off their ties with the United States and look elsewhere for allies and partners. She said this in the aftermath of Trump's sweeping tariffs, which Brussels has decried as neither credible nor justified. And then it goes on and explains why, yeah, I know we're putting bigger tariffs on them, but it's not how it looks. The reason we're doing that is because our farmers and our producers, we're not as rich as the United States, right? So you can't just look at it as saying, well, our tariffs are higher than the Americans' tariffs, because they're a lot richer than us and we're a lot poorer. Right across Europe, and it's like, okay, are you actually going to give us some facts and statistics here? Are you going to give us the whole emotion? Are you going to cry me a river story again? And sorry, I'm not saying this against you in Europe. I'm saying this against her as the unelected leader of Europe. They never give you the facts. They never want to give you numbers and statistics, which is the only thing I really look at. They always want to tell you how people feel. Oh, well, people feel this way about it. It's not really about the numbers. It's about how people feel. It's just a load of nonsense, basically. Gets me wound up. So she said then, so the president of the European Commission has been working the phones with representatives from Norway, Iceland, Canada, New Zealand, Singapore, the UAE. And she said she's most excited by her conversations with Chinese Premier Li Qiang, fueling speculation of an imminent new EU-China pact. And remember what her and the other lady said the other day. They were talking about how they now feel closer to China than they do the United States. Huh? And they wanted to pursue a new partnership. This is such a big mistake that they're going to make if they pursue this partnership with Europe over the with China over the United States. Huge mistake. So EU chief supports the EU's renewal for this was an interesting one, of a new world order. Yes, they actually did use this word 3 times throughout the speech. The EU needs to strive for progress in building its own defence capabilities. There's 2 main points of it, and improving its competitiveness. The European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, has asserted that a renewal of the European Union is needed so it can actively participate in the shaping of a new world order. And then she does all the usual, from the ashes we will... like, what ashes? Are you a phoenix or something? We need another new European Union that is ready to go out into the big wide world. In fact, that's a weird thing to say, out of the ashes. Like, what is it? What is even being referred to there? I'm not entirely sure. And to play a very active role in shaping this new world order. Honestly, she keeps repeating it over and over again. That is coming, she said in an interview with Die Zeit. That said, she noted that the EU needs to strive for progress in two areas. That's defence, capability, competitiveness, etc., and with China. Speaking of the US tariff policy, she pointed to the importance of fostering ties with partners, and she doesn't believe that America is being a friend to the EU due to the tariffs. Okay. But the new reality also includes the fact that many other states are seeking to draw closer to us. 13% of global trade is with the United States. That's a lot. 87% of the world's trade is with other countries. So in other words, she's saying there's loads of other countries, you know, this 13%, yeah, it's a lot for global trade, but it's not that much for us. What she's not telling you is her statistics, the EU statistics of trade with the US. It's big. It's very big, and it will hit them hard, even though it's being brushed off. That's why they're looking to China, and they're looking to all these countries that they've been talking very negatively about for a long time. You know, China, Vietnam, and all these, you know, these countries that to them were the enemy. Now all of a sudden they're their best friends. It's funny how these people turn and run at the easiest and the quickest opportunity here. She says Europe can deliver this. We must now use this momentum to open up new markets for our companies and establish as close a relationship as possible with these new countries that have the same interests as us. Does that mean their interest with you, or does it mean their interest against the US? I'm not sure. Again, there's a lot of riddles in these speeches. According to her, currently she is constantly holding countless talks with all these other countries. Includes as well Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, Mexico, Latin America. Right now I could have these conversations 24 hours a day. So she's sort of trying to say that the US isn't that really important because we're going to build all these new alliances. She also said the EU is a very attractive, rich market for a few, here we go, US firms that control about 80% of the digital services. Now, this is what we talked about the other day. And you know what was really interesting? I don't know if you saw this article going around, but it was the same article on different platforms. It said that a prominent YouTuber, I hope this isn't me, has made up all this misinformation about Visa, MasterCard and PayPal, and that it's all being taken out of context. And that, yes, she said that they wanted to, you know, get rid of these because they're American companies, but she didn't really mean that. She just meant that she wanted to introduce new platforms alongside them. Right, so get rid doesn't mean get rid. And anyway, they did this whole thing, this whole misinformation campaign. I was just thinking as I was reading that, I hope this isn't aimed at me here, that they're, you don't want to get on these radars of these crazy media outlets, as Elon Musk has found out the hard way, I think. So this is what they're saying then. They want to move away, and they're just doubling down on this. They really are. They're doubling down on this. And this 80% of digital services as well, they're saying is US controlled. They want to reduce that. Now, I'm reading their words. They want to reduce that. Does that mean they're going to ban them completely? Probably not. But reduce means less than now. Now, if it's an open market based on competitiveness, how are you going to reduce it without putting in tariffs or rules or something that maybe isn't fair to those companies who have established themselves there? Maybe you think that it's not fair that they have established themselves there. American companies owning 80% of the market. I don't know. Drop a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. But this whole thing is going to get crazy. It is going to get really, really tense very, very soon. Now, another one. Okay, well, here it is. Here it is. This is back to, we've got to go back to France a minute. Look at this one. This is Telegraph Money here. France is about to hammer the rich after 1.7 billion wealth tax raid. And not just this, Rachel Reeves, that is the UK, by the way. If you thought it's bad now, just wait. Rachel Reeves is being urged to introduce similar levies on Britain's top taxpayers amid this ballooning debt. Here we go. France is poised to make a one-off wealth tax permanent. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that they always say this? It's a one-off tax. Don't worry, we're just going to do this one. And the next thing you know, next year, it's permanent. I don't know if you remember during the lockdowns of the COVID era, all these things they put in place. It's just temporary until it's over. Most of those things they have never removed. I don't know if you're aware of that. Most of those emergency measures they haven't even removed in a lot of countries. That's how there's all of these fast track, things that are going on, or even when people are sent to prison, there's a fast track prison thing. This, because of these emergency measures, a lot of them have just never been removed. So as soon as I saw this one-off wealth tax last year, I said, oh yeah, of course it's going to be a one-off, of course it is. And of course it's not. So they're going to make it permanent now. Rachel Reeves is also looking into this. A minimum 20% tax on the country's wealthiest introduced last year should now stay for good. The UK is also looking at this. But here's the kicker with all of this. This is not actually accurate. When they say the country's wealthiest, they don't actually mean the country's wealthiest. These aren't the billionaire class. They're not the 100 millionaire class. They're talking, and again, I'm talking France and the UK here. They're talking about people, and I'll show you in a moment when we get to it in black and white, that earn 250,000 euros, 250,000 pounds a year. That is not the richest people. That is someone who is probably one of the highest earning employees in the country. Not the richest people in the country. This is how it works. It goes employee, self-employed, then you have your business owners, then you sort of have your investors. These are your tiers here for wealth and earnings. You can't be one of the richest people on a salary because the government taxes you the more you earn. That's why I left the UK. Why would I pay with the company taxes and personal taxes and everything? It was something like 70%. And I won't even go into that on a more granular basis. The accountants are probably scratching their head here going, hold on, I thought the top rate was 45%. Yeah, yes, it is, but there's rates, there's other rates, there's national insurance, and then there's corporation tax, and there's business rates, and there's all these other things. It was about 70%. You just got to take my word for this. So France's national debt has ballooned in recent years, leading to higher taxes. It now accounts for 113% of GDP, considerably more than Britain, and it rose by 202 billion to 3.3 trillion last year. So it rose that much. The government needs to find 40 billion euros next year to reduce the public deficit, and it wants the high earners to pay more. So the 20% additional tax, this is additional tax, is going to be applied to earners, so employees here that earn 250,000 a year. The country's household savings are at a record. I've highlighted this as well because I thought this was interesting. And there's also a survey here. Let me just load this survey up. I thought this was interesting that they're talking about the household savings being 600 billion euros. Why are they saying that? Why do you keep seeing this all over the media, especially in Europe? And it's because of what we talked about a couple of weeks back, where they're going to be plundering the savings accounts. That's what they're looking to do. They want to plunder these savings accounts for the interests of the country. I'm actually just creating, I think I mentioned this, a gold and silver course at the moment. It's not ready, you can't buy it or anything like that at the moment. In fact, that's why I got these on my desk here. I was just like, why are they sat there? I'm making a course at the moment, teaching foundations, and also there's going to be an advanced course probably a couple of weeks later. And with them, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so with this course I was creating, I was even talking about and thinking around how gold and silver is a protective hedge against all of this stuff going on, all of these new proposals to plunder people's savings and just take their money. And I think people are worried again. You're sort of seeing these rising prices because people are getting worried. And I'll go over all of this in the course, in the psychology and in the fundamentals and everything else. But what you need to understand is that people are getting worried by what is going on, especially in Europe. And this is how we saw these runs beforehand. So the 600 billion they're talking about of household savings currently not being used. And of course, there's a survey here. Would you support this wealth tax in Britain on the wealthiest earners? I don't think people are going to realize what that means. The wealthiest earners are going to be, I don't know who's going to be in there. Is it going to be surgeons? Is it going to be people like that? But it's not going to be these, your Jeff Bezos and your Elon Musk and all these other. It's not going to be those people. It's going to be employees, basically. They go on to say many ideas about how to impose more punishing taxes on France's wealthiest are currently being considered by the country's political class. They've suggested increasing taxes on the wealthy to help fund a planned increase in defense spending in the coming years, because they feel that the wealthiest people should be more responsible, okay? Now, this was another one that's just come out, and we're going to jump back to the UK a moment, because this is exactly what we talked about. Small firm owners, so small business owners and entrepreneurs, are leaving the UK en masse. This is a new survey that has just come out. And we talked about this. We talked about how the sort of waves would occur. And it was the non-dom. It was the richest people in society, the business owners, the people that owned mega corporations. They would start to leave. And it would sort of flow down from there. Entrepreneurs, medium business owners, and now it's really trickling down. Now, just wait until you see the tax revenues. Just wait. There's going to be a bigger black hole. But now we've got to the sort of SME. These are your small to medium-sized enterprises that are leaving. Look at the FSB. Look at any of the big reports on this, and you'll see it for yourself. And not only that, they've also stated on this new report, new survey, no one's hiring. Like, none of these emerging companies are hiring in the UK. A lot of them are actually hiring contractors from other countries. So the UK government, in their lack of wisdom, think that this is going to encourage employment, it's going to encourage hiring and recruitment, all this other stuff. Nonsense. What's happening with all of these increases in these new taxes? That is what an entrepreneur does. An entrepreneur seeks the most viable opportunity to make a profit. And I know some people don't like that word, but that is the purpose of a business. A business's mandate is to make a profit. All right, so whether you're a small business, medium business, or a large company, you're not there. It's not a charity. That's why it's called a business. You got a business and you got a charity. It's a business. It's there. Its mandate is to make a profit. If it can't make a profit, then it will go somewhere else where it can make a profit. I mean, I know this is pretty obvious economics 101 here, but the government doesn't seem to understand these very simple principles. So at the moment, we've already seen 40% have left the UK. 40%, and a lot more are considering, and it says here, an imminent departure. They did this large survey throughout the UK. So where are they going? This is usually what you ask me in the comments. Neil, where are they going? The top destination is Spain. The second top destination is the United States, and then it's Dubai, UAE, etc., because they're tax-free locations. The tax burden is expected to rise to 38.3% in just 2 years' time. This is getting out of control. But as I mentioned the other day, we're in this debt spiral. I honestly don't see a way out of it. I've even asked people who I know, very good economists, what is the way out? And they give me the word sandwich, but they don't know. They don't know either what the way out is. They talk about, well, if we did this and we did that and we did that, and it's not the solution. I just can't see. The problem is the debt and the debt spiral and the servicing of that debt. Unless you get that under control, it's just not going to work. Okay, this was another interesting thing. The exodus so far of non-DOMs has already cost the UK economy, I'm not sure if this is accurate, but I'm going to just run with it anyway because it sounds big. It's already cost the UK economy £100 billion based on the 7,000 individuals who have left. Now, 7,000 millionaires and billionaires is a lot of money flowing out of the UK. It's a huge amount of money. These people, not all of them, but many of them would have paid taxes in the UK as well. And if they didn't pay taxes, they would have spent a lot of money in the UK. So then they're paying VAT, and then that money's flowing into other companies, and those companies are paying taxes. And right, so the money's circulating. Now that money is going offshore. London has seen the biggest outflow of entrepreneurs and investors. It was only Moscow that had the biggest loss of ultra high net worth individuals in the last 12 years, and that's because of sanctions. Let me know, what do you think to this, ladies and gentlemen? Because I just think this is going from bad to worse, and the EU is digging a hole, a big black hole here is what I see. Remember to subscribe. I always forget. Remember to subscribe if you're not subscribed, and check you're still subscribed as well. People say they've been unsubscribed. Yeah. Okay, that's it. That's all I've got to say. Thanks. Take care. God bless.